The listening post hung at the edge of nothing. No planets, no trade lanes, only black space and a single cold star. Inside, 3 tired operators watched rows of silent screens. They had been listening to cosmic static for months. Then a tone appeared. Just a tiny soft pulse. It should have been random noise. But it repeated. Every 12 seconds, exactly, Operator Lyra leaned closer. Her hands trembled as she increased the gain. The sound was not a tone at all. It was a pattern, a sequence of pulses and gaps like breathing. She frowned. "It's human," she whispered. "Old Earth code?" Her partner Jalen laughed nervously. "That's extinct. Nobody uses that anymore." The signal came again, stronger, clearer. With it came a burst of invisible data. The station's computers flickered. One screen went black. Another showed strange symbols. Lyra's headset hissed. A voice cracked with static spoke 3 words. "We are here." She ripped off her headset, her eyes wide. "Get the captain," she said. "Now." The 3rd operator tried to save the logs. Every time he pressed a key, the files changed. Whole folders rewrote themselves, turning into strings of nonsense. The distress call was eating their system like a virus. Outside the window, the star seemed dimmer, as if something had passed in front of it. Transition to main plot hours later. At Fleet Command, a meeting took place in a sealed chamber. Admirals, analysts, and a single captain in black uniform sat around a table. A projection showed the repeating waveform of the mysterious signal. "Origin?" asked an admiral. "Sector X-39, replied an analyst. "Marked as empty space. No colonies, no stations, no records." The captain looked up. She was tall with calm eyes. Her name was Captain Aria Solen. She commanded the exploratory ship Starbound Vigil. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you know extinct languages," the admiral said. "And because your ship can go where others cannot." Aria studied the waveform. The extinct human dialect was one she had learned as a child from her grandmother's stories, tales the government had quietly removed from school databases. "Prepare my crew," she said. "We launch at dawn, aboard Starbound Vigil." The Starbound Vigil was a long, sleek vessel built for deep space reconnaissance. Its hull was dark, its sensors delicate. Inside, corridors hummed with low power. Crew members moved with quiet efficiency. Aria walked the bridge. Screens displayed the usual star maps, but one sector glowed red. Sector X-39, the Forbidden Zone. Her first officer, Commander Rin, met her at the rail. "We're ready, Captain. But the crew is nervous. The stories about X-39? "What stories?" "That ships go in but never come out." Aria's lips tightened. "Those are myths. This is a routine investigation." Yet she felt a cold knot in her stomach. Entering the forbidden sector, the jump drive hummed. Space bent like glass. In a flash of white light, the ship appeared at the edge of X-39. It was beautiful. A giant blue nebula swirled like smoke. In its heart hung a small star and 3 rocky planets. No beacons, no traffic, nothing on official maps. But the distress signal was strong here, louder, clearer. On the main screen, and characters scrolled in the extinct dialect. "We were erased, we remember." The crew exchanged glances. "Origin point?" Aria asked. "Coming from the 2nd planet," said the sensor chief. "Surface looks habitable. Cities visible but no life signs." Aria ordered a slow approach. The Starbound Vigil descended through thin clouds. Below lay a city of glass towers and shining streets. Light still glowed in windows. Transit cars floated on silent tracks. But not a single human walked anywhere. The empty city landing team touched down on a wide plaza. Dustless, spotless, like the city had been cleaned that morning. Aria stepped off the shuttle. Her boots made the only sound. Inside the buildings, machines worked without humans. Screens showed empty hallways. Elevators moved by themselves, opening onto nothing. Lieutenant Mara picked up a child's toy from the ground. "It was warm, as if just held, this place," she murmured. "It's alive but dead." Commander Rin's wrist console beeped. "Captain, our ship's computers are changing again. Files are rewriting. Even our names in the crew list are shifting." Aria touched her own console. Her portrait photo was gone, replaced by a blank silhouette. The hidden message. They entered what looked like a library, a hall lined with glowing panels. On each panel scrolled text in hundreds of languages. Aria touched one. It changed instantly to the extinct human dialect. It read, "They made you forget. You are not who you think you are." A deep hum filled the room. The walls pulsed with faint light. Somewhere below, machinery started up. Lieutenant Mara pointed. "Captain." A door, a round hatch had appeared at the far end of the hall, glowing faint blue. Against her better judgment, Aria approached. The hatch opened silently, revealing a spiral stair descending into darkness. The descent each step echoed like thunder. The stair led to a small chamber. In the center stood an old-style beacon, physical metal, blinking weakly. Wires snaked into the floor. The beacon began to speak in a voice like broken glass. "We are the forgotten. We built this place. We were erased by design." Then a rush of static. The lights flickered. Commander Rin stepped back. "Captain, the beacon's broadcasting directly into our ship now." Aria stared at the machine. "Who erased you?" she asked aloud. The voice answered, fragmented. "Your own kind." The beacon shut off. The realization back on the Starbound Vigil, chaos reigned. Logs were gone. Mission orders had changed to blank pages. Crew memories seemed intact, but their digital identities were dissolving. The sensor chief reported, "Captain, there's a structure under the city, massive, power readings off the scale." Aria knew they were not just chasing a distress signal. They had walked into a trap or a warning. She turned to her crew. Someone wanted humanity to forget this sector. But the erasure is failing. We are here to find out why. As the ship prepared to scan the underground structure, every screen went black. A single line of text appeared in the extinct dialect. "Welcome back." A vibration shook the hull. The blue nebula outside rippled like water, and shapes began to emerge, dark silhouettes of ships long hidden. The episode fades on Aria's face, caught between awe and fear. As the forgotten fleet wakes up, the Starbound Vigil drifted over the silent planet like a lone shadow. Below lay endless rows of shining towers and glowing streets, but not a single human moved anywhere. The ship's sensors showed power in every building, but no life signs at all. Captain Aria Solen stood at the bridge rail and stared down at the ghost world. She could still hear the cracked voice from the beacon in her mind. "We were erased by design." The words had settled into her like ice. Commander Rin reported that the signal was now coming from multiple locations on the planet's surface, as if thousands of hidden transmitters had awakened at once. The crew whispered among themselves. They had all read the same line on their screens. "Welcome back." Even after a full system reboot, the message would not disappear. Every console displayed it, quiet and patient like a heartbeat. Aria ordered a second landing. This time, they would explore a different city on the far side of the planet. The shuttle glided down through low clouds and touched a landing pad on the roof of a tall building. Doors opened automatically as they stepped out, lights flicking on in empty hallways to guide them inward. The air was warm and clean, but heavy with the smell of ozone, as if machinery had been running for centuries without pause. Lieutenant Mara bent to examine a pile of clothes on the floor. They were folded neatly, still warm to the touch, but no person remained. She held up a child's jacket. A name tag was sewn inside, but the letters shifted before her eyes, rearranging into nonsense symbols and back again. She dropped it quickly and rubbed her hands on her pants. "This isn't a normal colony," she whispered. In a large plaza, they found transit cars lined up in perfect rows, doors open, engines humming. One of the cars rolled forward a few meters, stopped, and rolled back again, repeating the motion like a memory stuck on a loop. Digital advertisements flickered on surrounding towers. They showed smiling human faces that blurred and faded into static, then reappeared as blank masks. The effect was so disturbing that the crew looked away. Inside a government building, they discovered archives. The walls were covered in crystalline panels that pulsed with faint light. When Aria touched one, it shifted into the old dialect again. The words crawled slowly across the panel. "You do not remember us, but we remember you." Beneath the text, a map of the system appeared, marked with dozens of red dots. Each dot represented another silent colony. Each one still powered, still sending signals, but empty of people. Commander Rin's voice trembled as he read the numbers aloud. "There aren't just a few cities," he said. "There are thousands. Whole worlds." The thought of so many vanished humans pressed on them like weight. Back on the ship, systems continued to misbehave. Crew rosters replaced faces with blank silhouettes. Mission logs changed times and dates. Even the ship's registry number flickered between two sets of digits. Engineers tried to isolate the interference, but found nothing. "It's not hacking," one technician said. "It's rewriting reality around our data." The phrase made no sense, but no one laughed. Aria and her team moved deeper into the building. At its heart was a circular room, lined with tall, sealed doors. A low tone vibrated through the floor. As they approached, one door slid open, revealing a stairway spiraling downward. Without a word, they descended. The air grew colder. The walls began to glow faintly, showing impressions of faces, men, women, children, pressed into the stone like fossils. They seemed to watch the crew pass. Mara reached out to touch one, but pulled back at the last second. She thought she saw the eyes blink. At the bottom, they entered a huge underground chamber. It looked like a cathedral built by machines. Rows of black monoliths rose from the floor, each one humming softly. Faint blue light pulsed inside them like trapped stars. The moment Aria stepped between the monoliths, her wrist console vibrated violently. A new message flashed across it. "We are still here." Her heart raced. She felt as though thousands of unseen voices had whispered the words directly into her ear. Commander Rin scanned the monolith nearest him. "These aren't storage units," he said slowly. They're holding memories." The readings showed neural patterns, billions of them, suspended in some form of digital stasis. "Captain, these could be people." Aria looked up at the endless forest of glowing black stones. "People erased," she said, "but not destroyed, waiting." She tried to picture the missing citizens of the cities above, their minds stored like files, their bodies gone. The idea made her feel sick. She had studied conspiracies and hidden wars, but this was something far larger. Someone had taken whole populations and locked their thoughts away under their own cities. Suddenly the chamber's lights shifted from blue to red. A low alarm began to pulse. The monoliths started to vibrate, their hum deepening. Panels opened in the walls, exposing strange machines like giant mechanical spiders. They stirred as if waking from sleep. "We need to get out," Rin said sharply. "Now." But as they turned toward the stairway, it sealed shut with a hiss. A mechanical voice spoke in the extinct dialect, echoing from every direction. "Witness what was taken." The ground shook. In orbit above the planet, the Starbound Vigil also began to shake. Long-dead satellites rose from their grave orbits, igniting engines that had been cold for centuries. They formed a ring around the planet, pointing their dark antennas towards space. On the bridge, the sensor chief's screen filled with new contacts. "Captain," he said over the comm, his voice breaking, "I think the other colonies are coming online. Power spikes everywhere. We're surrounded." In the chamber below, Aria forced herself to stay calm. She stepped forward, standing between two monoliths. "Who are you?" she demanded aloud. "Why are you doing this?" For a moment there was only silence. Then the monoliths pulsed once in unison, and a whisper filled the air, thin and soft but unmistakably human. "We were your future. We were erased. Now you will know." The machines in the walls folded their limbs and powered down again. The red lights faded back to blue. The stairway reopened. Aria motioned for the team to move. As they climbed, Mara glanced back one last time. The faces in the walls seemed clearer now, almost alive. She thought she heard a child laugh faintly before the hatch closed above them. When they reached the surface, the city was no longer still. Screens all across the towers showed the same symbol, a spiral of black and white turning slowly. Transit cars moved in perfect circles through the streets. Overhead, clouds formed a massive eye-like shape. The signal in their headsets had changed. It was no longer a distress call, but a countdown. 10 hours, 9 minutes, 58 seconds. The numbers ticked down steadily. Back aboard the Starbound Vigil, Aria went straight to the bridge. "Plot a course to the next red dot on the map," she ordered. Rin stared at her. "You want to go deeper?" She nodded. "We're not just finding ghosts," she said. "We're uncovering what someone wanted buried forever." Outside the windows, the silent planet glowed under its false daylight, a monument to something too large to understand. As the ship lifted from the landing pad, the countdown on every screen followed them into orbit. 10 hours until something happened, something the vanished humans had planned or something their erasers had set in motion. No one on the crew could look away from the numbers. The sense of being watched pressed in from every direction. The planet, the cities, the monoliths all seemed to breathe. Above, in the dark of space, more faint shapes moved inside the nebula, aligning like pieces on a board. The episode closes with Aria's face lit by the glow of the countdown, her eyes fixed on the empty colonies that might not be empty at all. The countdown ticked like a heartbeat on every screen of the Starbound Vigil. 9 hours. 8 hours, 59 minutes. The crew barely spoke. Every time someone opened a file or a console, the numbers were there, waiting, pulsing. Captain Aria Solen stood at the center of the bridge, her hands gripping the rail, staring at the red dots that filled the star map. Each dot was another silent colony, another world taken and hidden. She had thought she was chasing a single mystery. Now she could see it was a lattice of secrets stretching across the stars. Commander Rin broke the silence. "Captain, the next signal point is on a moon in the outer orbit. No cities, just a ruined station." His voice trembled. "It's called Archive 0 in the old charts. Deleted from our records centuries ago." Aria gave a single nod. "Take us there." Full stealth. She did not know who had left the countdown ticking, but she knew she had to reach the truth before it hit 0. The Starbound Vigil slid into the shadow of a pale, cratered moon. Its surface was scarred with hexagonal pits, like the cells of a frozen hive. At its pole stood a structure shaped like a spear driven into the rock, black metal veined with faint blue light. Sensors said it had no power. Visually, it pulsed like a sleeping heart. No one wanted to go down, but orders were orders. Aria chose a small team, the same who had walked the empty cities and descended in the shuttle. The landing bay of the spear was open. Dust swirled, but no footprints marked the floor. As they stepped out, their comms filled with a low, deep hum. Lieutenant Mara whispered, "It's like being inside a throat." They moved through curved corridors lined with smooth plates. Symbols floated across the walls and vanished before they could be read. Every surface was warm. Deep inside, they reached a circular chamber with a single pedestal. Above it hung a holographic globe, shifting between dozens of human faces that blurred and changed too fast to recognize. As Aria approached, the globe froze. A single face appeared. It was old-lined and eerily calm. Its eyes looked straight at her. "Welcome, inheritor," it said in the extinct dialect. The voice was smooth, human, but not. "We are the architects. We designed your forgetting." The words struck like a blow. The crew stiffened. "You're alive?" Aria demanded. Her voice echoed around the chamber. "Who are you really?" The face smiled faintly. "We were your teachers, your protectors. We built the lattice of your expansion. We built the colonies you now walk through. And when you reached too far, we closed the doors. It was necessary," Rin stepped forward. "Necessary to erase entire populations?" The hologram tilted its head. "Necessary to preserve the whole. You multiplied beyond control. You threatened the weave. We removed the unstable branches. We stored them for a time, when you would be ready." Its tone was as casual as a surgeon explaining an old operation. Aria's hands curled into fists. "You're telling me humans did this to other humans?" The face flickered, revealing others beneath it. Men, women, children, all shifting. "We are human. We were chosen to guide the species. We became the architects. We hid ourselves to do what had to be done. The chamber's light dimmed. Panels opened to show rows of long, sealed pods, stacked like coffins. Blue mist swirled inside each one. Mara moved closer and peered through the glass of the nearest. A sleeping child lay within, perfectly still, eyes closed. She jerked back. "Captain, they're not just memories. They're bodies. Stored," the hologram said. "Waiting. You were not ready. Now the lattice is fraying. The seal is breaking. That is why you are here. You were meant to come." Aria felt the countdown beating in her own skull. "What happens when it reaches 0? The face smiled again. "Return." The word echoed around the chamber like thunder. "Return, return, return." The hologram flickered and vanished. The pods began to hum. Suddenly the floor shook. Dust drifted from the ceiling. In orbit, the Starbound Vigil registered a surge of power from the spear structure. Satellite debris lifted from the moon's surface and aligned into a ring around it. On the bridge, the sensor chief shouted over the comm, "Captain, something huge is coming through subspace. Mass readings off the scale." Below, in the chamber, the pod's mist cleared. Eyes opened one by one inside the glass. Children, adults, thousands of them staring without moving. Mara whispered a prayer under her breath. Commander Rin reached for his weapon, but Aria held up her hand. "No," she said softly. "They're waking." A deeper voice rolled through the chamber, not from the hologram, but from everywhere at once. "You are the first to break the seal. You are the signal. When the clock ends, the stored ones return. The architects walk again." Aria raised her head. "If you're human, why hide? Why call yourselves architects? Why erase our memory?" Silence. Then a whisper like wind. "Because we are not finished." The pods began to rise slowly from the floor, lifting on beams of light. Panels on the walls folded away to reveal a vast shaft plunging down into the moon's core. Far below, something glowed, a swirling mass of blue and black energy. The lifted pods drifted into the shaft like seeds on a current. Aria tapped her comm. "Bridge, get us out of here now!" Static answered. The comm line had gone dead. Mara grabbed her arm. "Captain, look!" The hologram had reappeared at the edge of the chamber, not as a single face, but as a crowd, thousands of blurred figures overlapping. They raised their hands as one. The whisper became a roar. "You were not meant to remember, but you came anyway." The floor split open beneath them, revealing narrow passageways lined with glass tubes. Inside, the tubes flowed streams of light like liquid memory. Images flickered in the glow. Cities being built, fleets launching, entire planets seeded with life. Then the same images running backward, cities emptying, fleets dissolving, planets going dark. The crew could hardly breathe. Aria forced her voice steady. "What do you want from us?" "To finish what we began," the roar said. "To correct the pattern. To bring the stored ones back and erase the unstable branch." Rin's eyes widened. "Captain, we're the unstable branch." The hologram reached toward them. "You can still choose. Join us. Become architects. Guide the return. Or be forgotten." The chamber trembled harder. Chunks of ceiling fell, shattering on the floor. Aria made her decision. "We're leaving," she said. She drew her sidearm and fired at the pedestal. Sparks flew. The hologram wavered, flickered, and broke into static. The pods slowed their ascent. The whisper turned into a low, angry hum. "Run!" she shouted. They sprinted back up the corridor, the walls pulsing red around them. The warm plates turned cold beneath their hands. Symbols flickered like angry eyes. At the landing bay, the shuttle's engines were already spinning up automatically, as if the ship itself wanted them gone. They leapt aboard and sealed the hatch. As the shuttle lifted off, the spear structure erupted with blue light. Tendrils of energy reached for them, but fell back at the last second. In orbit, the Starbound Vigil systems came back online with a violent surge. The countdown on every screen jumped to a new number. 3 hours, 37 minutes. The crew on the bridge watched in shock as the spear below cracked open like an egg, releasing a swarm of dark shapes that rose slowly into space. Some were pods, some were ships. All were silent. Aria's voice came over the comm, calm but hard. "Bridge, prepare for jump. We have our answer. The architects are real. And they're waking up. As the shuttle docked, the nebula around the moon shifted again. Deep inside its folds, vast silhouettes moved. Structures so big they made stars look small. The crew stared at the sensor displays in silence. They were no longer looking at ghost colonies. They were looking at a hidden empire stirring from sleep. Aria stood on the bridge and met each of their eyes. "We're going to warn the others," she said. "But first we have to survive what's coming." Outside, the dark shapes continued to rise, blotting out the stars. And the countdown ticked on. The countdown glowed on every screen of the Starbound Vigil. 3 hours, 37 minutes. It was no longer just numbers. The sound of it was in the air, a low pulse like a second heartbeat. Crew members whispered as they passed each other in the corridors. Some swore they could hear voices under the pulse. Others said they had started to dream of places they had never been. Captain Aria Solen stood at the center of the bridge. The windows showed only darkness, but she could feel the hidden ships moving out there, silent as sharks. Commander Rin came to her side. His face looked pale. "Captain, something's happening to the crew manifest," he said quietly. "Names are changing." She looked at the main display. The crew list, that had always been a wall of green names, was flickering. Photographs dissolved into static. Birth dates shifted. New names appeared, people who had never been on the ship. Then the list cleared and rebuilt itself, as if nothing had happened. Aria saw her own name vanish and reappear 3 times in a row. The engineers reported similar glitches in navigation, medical logs, even the ship's design schematics. Sections of the hull plan blinked out and came back different. It was as if the ship was remembering another life. The pulse from the countdown matched every flicker. Aria called an emergency meeting. The crew gathered in the mess hall, their eyes red and tired. "We are under some kind of memory blackout protocol," she told them. "It's rewriting data and trying to rewrite us. You will anchor yourselves to what you know. Speak your names aloud. Speak them often. Write them on your arms if you must." Some laughed nervously, but most obeyed. One by one, voices echoed through the hall, names, ranks, fragments of childhood, a small act of defiance. Later, Aria walked the ship alone. She found Lieutenant Mara sitting on the floor outside the med bay, clutching a photograph. "Who is that?" Aria asked gently. Mara stared at it. "I don't know," she whispered. "I woke up with it in my hand. I think she's my sister. But I've never had a sister." Tears ran down her face. "Or maybe I did. I can't tell anymore." On the bridge, Commander Rin fought the navigation console. Every time he set a course out of the system, it rerouted back toward the next red dot. "It's like we're being pulled," he muttered. "The ship doesn't want to leave." The countdown dipped under 3 hours. Suddenly a voice filled the intercom. It was not any of the crew. It spoke in the extinct dialect, but the words came clear. "Forget them. Forget yourself." The lights dimmed. A ripple ran through the ship. Aria grabbed the rail as the deck seemed to tilt, though they were in 0G. Her vision blurred. For a heartbeat she saw another bridge, another crew, faces she did not know but felt she should. Then it was gone. She ordered a full manual shutdown. Power fell away. Screens went dark. For a moment only, the emergency lights glowed red. The countdown continued in the dark, projected on every bulkhead as faint ghostly numbers. 2 hours, 59 minutes. Core systems are still active, the engineer reported. "Something's embedded too deep to cut," his voice cracked. "Captain, it's inside the jump drive." Aria thought of the architect's words, "You were meant to come." She realized now they were not just waking the stored ones. They were also preparing the living to forget. The memory blackout protocol was not an attack. It was a reset. She made her decision. "Lock out the AI, purge navigation. We go manual." The crew obeyed. For the first time since launch, the Starbound Vigil moved underhand, steering only. Engines rumbled like an old sea ship. The ship turned its nose away from the moon, but the stars outside shifted strangely, bending as if space itself resisted. Mara appeared on the bridge, her photograph still in her hand. "Captain, I think they're inside us," she said. "Not just the ship, us, our memories." She lifted the photo. The face on it was now Aria's. The countdown dipped under 2 hours. The pulse in the air grew louder. Some crew members began to mutter unfamiliar names under their breath. Others sat rigid, staring at nothing. Rin caught Aria's arm. "If this keeps going," he said, "we'll lose who we are before we get any answers." Aria moved to the helm herself. She keyed in a new vector, straight toward the heart of the nebula. "We're going in," she said. "If we're being rewritten, then the source is there. We find it or we become ghosts like the colonies." The ship plunged forward. Outside, dark shapes parted to let them pass. Inside, the temperature dropped. Frost crawled across the windows. The numbers of the countdown burned like fire in every reflection. Deep in the engineering bay, the jump core began to glow with a blue-black light. Lines of ancient script crawled over its surface. The engineer backed away. "Captain, the drive is speaking," he whispered into the comm. From the speaker came a low chant in the old dialect. "Erase, return, begin again." On the bridge, Aria closed her eyes. She spoke her name aloud. "Aria Solen, Captain of the Starbound Vigil. We are not yours to erase." She repeated it again and again until her voice was steady. Around her, the crew did the same, a rough chorus rising above the pulse. The ship entered the densest part of the nebula. Outside, a vast shape loomed, an enormous structure shaped like a ring woven from light and shadow, big enough to encircle a planet. At its center burned a hole of darkness. The countdown dropped to 1 hour, 30 minutes. Aria stared at the ring. She felt a tug at the edge of her mind, like hands pulling at a curtain. Images flashed behind her eyes, cities she had never seen, children she had never born, lives she had never lived. She gripped the console until her knuckles turned white. "Hold your name," she said to the crew. "Hold fast!" The Starbound Vigil drifted closer to the ring. The pulse became a roar. The countdown ticked down. 59 minutes, 58. Lights across the bridge went out. In the darkness, hundreds of faint blue eyes opened in the air like stars. Voices whispered all around them, "Come home. Forget the pain. Forget the fight." Aria raised her head into the storm of whispers. "We won't forget," she said quietly. "Not yet." She reached for the manual controls and drove the ship straight into the heart of the ring. The screen went white. The white glare faded slowly like the afterimage of a flash. Shapes came back first, then sound. The bridge of the Starbound Vigil felt bigger somehow, as if the ship had been stretched. Static hissed through every speaker. The countdown was gone, but in its place a single line blinked on every screen. "Access granted." Aria Solen blinked at it. Her hands still clutched the manual controls. Rin was at her shoulder, pale but steady. All around them the crew shifted, checking their consoles, whispering to themselves. For a moment nobody moved. It felt like the breath between lightning and thunder. Then the view outside cleared. The nebula had parted like torn cloth. They were inside a hollow sphere of calm light. All around them stretched an ocean of black-hulled ships. They floated nose to nose, thousands, maybe tens of thousands, arranged in slow spirals around a dead star. No markings, no signals, no movement. But Aria felt a pressure in her skull. A low hum, like the edge of a storm. Mara stepped closer to the window. "They're ours," she whispered. "I don't know how I know that, but I do." One by one the ships flickered with a dull red glow, like eyes opening. The hum deepened. Across the Vigil screens, more words appeared in the extinct dialect, translating themselves as they scrolled. "Standby mode complete. Primary authority located." Rin looked at Aria. "They're talking about you." She didn't answer. She was staring at her hand. Lines of faint blue script had appeared under her skin, crawling like veins. She could feel them, cold and hot at the same time. She pressed her palm to the console without thinking. The black ships brightened at once, red to gold, and slowly began to turn toward the Starbound Vigil. "Power surge in the drive," the engineer shouted from below decks. "We're pulling in data from everywhere, schematics, command codes, even history files." His voice shook. "Captain, this fleet isn't new. It's older than the colonies, older than Earth's last war." Aria felt a whisper in her head. Not words, more like an instinct. The fleet was an answer hidden inside a question. Insurance against something too big to fight alone. She drew a slow breath. "Broadcast a wideband hail," she said. Standard code. Nothing answered, but the ships moved. The first ring of vessels slid aside, creating a corridor through the spiral. The corridor led directly to a massive dreadnought at the center of the dead star's orbit. It dwarfed even the biggest colony ships, its hull scarred but intact. Faded across its bow were 5 words in Old Earth script: the Forbidden Fleet, Unit 0. The crew stared. Rin's mouth tightened. "We're inside someone's doomsday vault," he murmured. The dreadnought's bay doors opened. A beam of light reached out and caught the Vigil gently, drawing it forward. Every system on board flickered and went dead except life support and gravity. The ship glided helplessly into the giant's shadow. Mara clutched the photograph again. The face on it had changed back to her own. "Captain," she whispered, "I think the protocol was trying to keep us from this place. Not because it's dangerous, but because it's ours." They crossed the threshold. The bay doors closed behind them. Inside, the scale was staggering, a cavern of metal kilometers wide, lined with dark pods. In the center stood a column of light pulsing like a heart. The Vigil settled to a stop on a platform, without any visible clamps. Screens on the bridge flickered alive. A new countdown appeared. Reactivation in 10. 10 minutes until what? Rin asked, but his voice was hollow. Aria stood slowly. "Until the fleet wakes," she said. "All of it." She left the bridge and moved toward the docking ramp. The others followed. Beyond the airlock, the dreadnought's deck stretched like a cathedral floor. Dust lay thick but undisturbed. Symbols etched into the walls glowed faintly as she passed. She felt like she was walking through someone else's dream. A voice echoed from the column of light. It was not human, but it carried a human rhythm. "Commander Authority recognized," it said. "Please confirm DNA and memory key." Aria hesitated. She knew she should be terrified. Instead, she felt a strange calm, as if she had been here before in another life. She stepped forward and spoke her name. The column of light flared, sending tendrils of energy toward her. They wrapped around her wrist, warm as breath. Her memories flashed in a rush: childhood, academy, first posting. But then images she had never lived: construction of ships, hidden bases, secret oaths. She gasped and almost fell. Rin caught her arm. The voice spoke again. Authority confirmed. "Final command?" Aria swallowed. "Stand by," she said. She turned to the crew. "We need to know what we're waking." Mara was studying the pods. "They're not just ships," she said softly. "They're carriers for people, or minds. Maybe the erased colonists." Rin pulled up a holographic panel from the deck. Files poured across it, blueprints, logs, strategies. "Captain, these were built after the first wave of colonization. They were meant to wait for a signal we just gave." The countdown ticked under 5 minutes. Aria looked at her crew. Some were pale, some trembling, but none turned away. "If this fleet is ours, then the architects will know the moment it wakes," she said. "They'll come for us. We need to be ready." She faced the column again. "Status of weapons." "Fully functional," the voice said. "All units dormant, awaiting strategic objective. And the people, stored, protected, awaiting recall." Aria's heart hammered. "How many?" 400 million. The number hung in the air like a thunderclap. Mara dropped her photograph. It turned to light and vanished. "The erased," she whispered. "They're all here." The countdown hit 1 minute. The hum of the dreadnought rose, a deep vibration through the deck. Outside, the black ships shifted in their spirals, turning outward like blades. Lights ignited along their hulls. Conduits glowed beneath the floor. The column of light swelled until it filled the chamber. Aria lifted her head. "Begin reactivation," she said. The voice answered, "Command accepted." The floor shook. Outside, the fleet's drives burned pale blue. Rows of ships lifted into new formations. The dead star at the center flared once, as if exhaling. Waves of data streamed into the Vigil systems, names, faces, coordinates of lost worlds. The erased were no longer erased. They were waiting. On the bridge, alarms flared. Rin ran to a console still alive. "Captain," he said urgently, "we're receiving a priority signal." Not from the fleet, from outside. "Something huge is moving toward the nebula." "Multiple contacts." Aria turned slowly. "The architects." The dreadnought's voice spoke again, calm and implacable. "Incoming hostile entities. Recommend immediate dispersal and defensive posture. Fleet at 70% readiness. Mara looked at Aria. Captain, what do we do? Aria stared at the golden glow of the awakened ships. For the first time since the protocol began, she felt hope burning in her chest, fierce and cold. We finish what they started, she said quietly. We bring our people back. And if the architects want a war, she lifted her hand. Blue script burned brighter under her skin. Then they'll see what humanity left for them. Outside, the forbidden fleet spread its wings of metal and fire, a silent storm waiting for its first breath. The countdown reached 0. The forbidden fleet drifted in perfect silence around the dead star, its black hulls glowing with lines of gold. The Starbound Vigil floated at the center like a seed in a storm. Inside the ship, the crew watched the endless swarms of vessels forming into attack wings, carriers and dreadnoughts, moving as if they had always been alive. The air smelled faintly of ozone and something else, old memories waking. Captain Aria Solen stood on the bridge. The data pouring into her consoles was endless. Coordinates of erased worlds, messages from lost colonies, blueprints of weapons that had never been built. 400 million names scrolled past, each one a ghost returning to light. She felt the weight of all of them pressing against her mind. Commander Rin came up beside her. Fleet's at 90% readiness, he said quietly. They're waiting for your order. They'll jump wherever you send them. Aria nodded but said nothing. Her eyes were on the distant edge of the nebula where a shadow was moving. Something massive and slow, like a mountain sliding through clouds. The architects. She could almost taste their presence, cold and metallic, older than any war humanity had ever fought. Mara stood at the back of the bridge, twisting her fingers around the strap of her bag. She had stopped carrying the photograph days ago. Sometimes she still felt it in her pocket, though she knew it was gone. She couldn't shake the feeling that the ship was watching her, that something was listening from inside her own head. Suddenly, the lights flickered. All displays went black for a heartbeat, then came back with new code running across them. Not the fleet's code. Something else, Rin frowned. We're being scanned. No, Aria said slowly. We're being mirrored. Alarms erupted in engineering. The comm crackled with the engineer's voice. Captain, we've got a transmission leaking from our nav array. It's not ours. It's coming from inside our own systems. Shut it down, Aria ordered. We can't, the engineer said. It's embedded. Someone's broadcasting our position. Rin's head snapped up. A sleeper, he said. We've been carrying a sleeper this whole time. Everyone on the bridge looked at each other. Faces pale, eyes darting. Aria's stomach turned cold. Lock the ship down, she said. Nobody leaves their station. Security teams began moving through the corridors, checking each crew member. The tension was like a wire drawn tight. Somewhere in the ship, someone was feeding everything. The fleet's location, its codes, its command structure, to the approaching architects. Then a scream over the comm, gunfire. The feed cut off. Aria slammed her palm onto the console. "Find them!" she shouted. "Find them now!" A side door hissed open. Mara stepped onto the bridge, her face blank. In her hand was a small device pulsing with red light. "You can stop looking," she said softly. "It's me." For a heartbeat, no one moved. The only sound was the hum of the fleet outside. Then Rin took a step forward, disbelief twisting his face. "Mara," he said, "why?" She smiled faintly, but there was no warmth in it. "Because you're waking something that should stay asleep. Because we built the architects to keep you from doing exactly this." Aria felt the floor tilt under her. "We?" she asked. Mara raised the device. "I'm not who you think. I was seeded before birth with instructions. When the fleet woke, I was to call them. And I have. They're coming. You can't stop them. You're human," Rin said desperately. "You're one of us." "I'm what we all are," Mara said. "A product of design. But some of us stayed loyal." The device's pulse quickened. Outside, the nearest ring of ships shuddered, their lights dimming. Systems across the Vigil began to shut down. Aria lunged forward, but Mara pressed a button on the device, and a shield of shimmering air flared around her, throwing the captain back against the console. "You don't understand," Mara said. You think the architects are your enemy, but they were made to save you. You were tearing the galaxy apart. You built them to erase your own mistakes. And now you're about to undo it all. Aria forced herself up, gripping the edge of the console. Then why erase yourself? She asked. Why hide? Because you can't be trusted with what you built, Mara whispered. You proved that the first time. Rin drew his sidearm. His hands shook. Drop it, Mara, he said. Please, Mara looked at him sadly. I can't. In a few minutes the architects will be here. They'll finish the reset. You won't even remember this. It's better that way. Aria's mind raced. She felt the blue script under her skin burning hot, a signal trying to break free. She reached out to the fleet through the link. She barely understood. Ships outside shifted, turning toward the Vigil, weapons charging. Mara flinched, sensing it. Stop, she hissed. If you attack, you'll wake the full failsafe. The fleet will turn on you. Then give me the device, Aria said. No. Mara's thumb hovered over the button. Aria took a slow step forward. Listen to me. You're still Mara. You're still one of us. Whatever was seeded in you doesn't change that. Look at me. For a moment Mara's eyes flickered. Her hand trembled. The device's pulse slowed. Then the deck shook violently. Outside the nebula, a spear of black light pierced through the clouds. The architects had arrived. Their ships were like shards of night, moving without engines, bending space around them. The comms filled with a deep metallic chorus. Not words. Just a single command. Reset. The forbidden fleet lurched as if struck. Lines of gold across their hulls flickered, turning dark. One by one their weapons shut down. Systems on the Vigil screamed with overload warnings. Mara closed her eyes. It's too late, she whispered. Aria lunged. She hit Mara hard, knocking the device from her hand. It skidded across the floor, sparking. Rin dove and kicked it away. The shield around Mara collapsed. Outside, the fleet shuddered, caught between two signals. The architect's command to shut down and Aria's link urging them to fight. Ships turned in confused spirals. Some fired on invisible targets. Others powered down completely. Mara lay on the deck, staring up at Aria. You don't know what you've done, she said. You've called a war you can't win. Aria knelt beside her, breathing hard. Then help me stop it, she said. Help me wake them fully before the architects take control. Mara's face twisted. For a long moment she said nothing. Outside, the black spear of light grew brighter, cutting closer. The architects were almost inside. Finally, Mara whispered, There's a command buried under your skin. A counter-signal. I can unlock it. But if I do, there's no going back. You'll become what the fleet was built to follow. Aria met her eyes. Do it, Mara hesitated, then reached out. Her fingers pressed to Aria's wrist. The blue script flared white, crawling up Aria's arm, across her throat into her eyes. She gasped as a rush of memories slammed into her. Plans, battles, oaths sworn in hidden chambers, the secret birth of the architects. She saw herself, not as she was now, but as another version, standing at the center of the fleet centuries ago. The deck shook again. Outside, the first of the architects' ships crossed into the sphere. Space twisted around it like water around a blade. Aria stood slowly. White light burned from her eyes. She turned to the windows. The fleet outside responded instantly, ships snapping into perfect formation, weapons igniting with a soundless roar. Mara dragged herself up. You're the commander now, she said hoarsely. They'll do whatever you say. Aria raised her hand toward the architects. Then we fight, she said. The forbidden fleet awoke fully, and the dead star blazed like a new sun. The space around the dead star shimmered like liquid metal. The forbidden fleet held formation, silent and perfect, under Aria Solen's command. Beyond them, the architects' ships twisted through the nebula, enormous black shards moving without engines, their presence bending reality itself. On the bridge of the Starbound Vigil, the crew could feel the weight of the coming clash pressing on their minds. Every console buzzed with alien energy, every screen pulsing with data that seemed alive. Aria stood at the helm, the white-blue script under her skin glowing bright. It crawled along her arms and throat, feeding her memories she had never lived, memories of the creation of the fleet, of hidden colonies, of the architect's design. She could feel the power of every ship in the formation, hear their silent engines singing through her mind. Mara was at her side, still trembling, watching the flow of images. Commander Rin's hands were locked over a console, knuckles white, trying to make sense of the incoming reports. "Captain," he said finally, voice low, "we're receiving transmissions from the core of the dead star itself. There's something inside it. Energy readings off the charts. It looks like a station, but the data doesn't make sense. It's alive, or something close to alive." Aria didn't answer. Her eyes were on the space beyond the fleet, where tendrils of darkness twisted toward them like fingers. The architects were waiting for her to act, waiting to reclaim what had been theirs to control. She could hear the faint hum in her head growing louder, and with it, the pulse of the forbidden fleet. Each ship thrummed like a heartbeat. "We have to go inside," she said finally, turning to the crew. "That energy is the core of their operation. It's the key to everything they've hidden, the colonies, the erased humans, the protocol itself. If we can control it, we can end this." Rin shook his head. "Captain, that thing is bigger than a fleet, bigger than a system. We don't even know if it's stationary. It could wipe us before we get close." Aria's gaze didn't waver. "We have the fleet, and we have each other. We go in, now." The Starbound Vigil slipped from the formation, moving toward the center of the dead star. The fleet followed, their engines silent, responding to her thoughts as if she were the hub of a living network. Mara swallowed hard and moved to Aria's side. "Are we really ready for this?" Aria gave a faint nod. "We're as ready as we'll ever be. Humanity is about to remember itself. The closer they got, the more the star seemed to react. Its surface rippled like a living membrane. Energy arcs leapt across the hulls of ships, and readings spiked uncontrollably. Panels on the Vigil lit up with warnings: hull stress, energy feedback, gravitational anomalies. Mara gasped as the star's core pulsed, each beat echoing in her chest. Then the air inside the ship changed. A low, resonant voice filled every speaker, but it wasn't speaking aloud. It was in their heads. "You were never meant to reach this point," it said, smooth and eternal. "You were meant to forget." Aria's fingers dug into the console. "Not anymore," she said. "We remember." The core's energy flared, and images filled their minds, entire erased colonies, humans that had never existed in the open universe, waiting inside storage pods, their minds intact, ready to awaken. Mara whispered, "It's them. All of them. We can bring them back." Rin's voice trembled. "Captain, if we do this, we risk everything. The architects will not let this go. They'll destroy the fleet, us, the entire system." Aria's eyes glowed brighter as she stretched out her hand toward the core. The ships of the Forbidden Fleet responded instantly, forming concentric circles around the star, weapons charging silently. "Then we fight," she said. "Not to conquer, not to destroy, but to restore what was stolen." The core pulsed violently, then split open like a black flower. Streams of blue-black energy poured outward, washing over the fleet. Ships trembled under the torrent. The Vigil rocked as though caught in a storm. Panels flickered, alarms screamed, and still the voice whispered, "You cannot undo what was designed." Aria pushed through the fear. She let the energy of the fleet flow into her, merging her mind with theirs. The script under her skin spread further, threading into Mara and Rin, threading into the core itself. She could feel every pod, every erased human, every secret the architects had buried. The memory of humanity surged through her like fire and ice. Mara's eyes widened as she saw the pods activating. Faint lights flickered within, and one by one the humans began to awaken. They gasped, cried, and blinked at the lights, disoriented but alive. "They're coming back," Mara whispered. The architects responded. Ships detached from the shadows, twisting reality to try to pull the fleet apart. Space bent unnaturally. Beams of dark energy lashed out, striking at the Vigil. The crew clung to their consoles as alarms screamed. "Captain! Hull breach is imminent," Rin shouted. Aria closed her eyes, merging with the fleet's consciousness. She could feel the pattern of the architects, the logic behind the arrays, the cold precision of their design. But she also felt the pulse of humanity, the will to survive, to remember, to reclaim what was lost. She reached out through the network. Every ship in the fleet pulsed back in perfect unison, an answer to a call older than the nebula around them. The architects' assault faltered. Their beams dissipated against the synchronized shields of the awakened fleet. Pods accelerated outward, releasing more humans into stasis fields that quickly stabilized. Mara touched Aria's arm. "It's working. The core, we're linking it to the fleet." "Good," Aria said, her voice echoing in her own mind as the ships responded to her commands. "Now we finish it." She projected her consciousness into the core. Waves of energy surrounded her. Memories flooded in. Worlds erased, colonies hidden, protocols meant to prevent humanity from reaching this point. The weight was unbearable, but she focused on one thing, restoring what was stolen. The scripts under her skin flared white. Her mind became the key, threading every ship, every pod, every human mind back into a single coherent network. Outside, the architect's ships recoiled. They struck with everything they had, but the fleet moved as one, countering every attack. The dead star pulsed violently, then seemed to hum with life. Energy arcs danced through the void. One by one, the architect's ships were forced back, retreating to the shadows from which they came. On the bridge, Mara's voice trembled with awe. "They're leaving." "They're actually leaving," Aria nodded slowly, exhaustion and triumph flooding through her. "Humanity isn't erased anymore," she said. "We are whole again." The core's energy stabilized. The blue-black glow softened to a calm, radiant light. Pods descended from orbit, landing on nearby worlds. Humans stepped out, blinking at the sun they had never seen, worlds that had always been theirs, but never theirs to touch. Ships of the Forbidden Fleet hovered above, guiding them safely to the planets. Rin leaned against a console, finally allowing himself a deep breath. "Captain, we did it." Aria looked out at the stars. "Not just us," she said quietly. "All of them. Humanity is awake again." The architects underestimated what it means to survive, to remember. "We are not just their experiment. We are ourselves." Mara touched Aria's arm, her hand warm and real. Now?" she asked. "Now," Aria said, "we help them rebuild, and we make sure no one ever erases us again." Outside, in the void, the dead star pulsed softly, a heartbeat once stolen, now returned. The Forbidden Fleet held formation, silent guardians of a humanity reborn. Stars twinkled anew as if acknowledging the triumph of life, memory and will. For the first time in centuries, the universe felt alive with human presence, vast and unbroken, standing tall against the darkness. The chapter closed, with Aria's eyes scanning the horizon. Countless worlds awaited, countless people waking, and the promise of humanity restored. The secret core had given them more than survival, it had given them a future. The stars beyond the nebula shone brighter than ever, but they were no longer safe. The architect's fleet, though forced back, had retreated only to regroup. The void around the dead star trembled with tension. Humanity's reborn fleet, the Forbidden Fleet, stood ready, every ship alive with the energy of a species that had returned from erasure. On the bridge of the Starbound Vigil, Captain Aria Solen felt the pulse of 1,000,000 humans in her mind, alive and aware, their memories threading through her like a river of light. "Captain," Commander Rin said, voice tight, "scans show the architects are mobilizing again. This time, they're concentrating everything they have." "They'll strike here," Aria nodded, her blue-white script glowing under her skin. "Then we give them a reason to remember us and fear us." She turned to Mara, who stood at her side, still trembling from the last battle but holding her ground. "Prepare the fleet." Every human awakened, every ship armed. "This ends now," Mara nodded, eyes sharp with resolve. "They won't erase us again. Not while we stand." Outside, the void churned. Shadows twisted unnaturally, folding and unfolding across the black expanse. The architect's ships emerged, enormous and jagged, their hulls bending light, warping space itself. They moved with a silent intelligence. No engines, no weapons visible, yet the sensors screamed at the energy readings. They were death-made, tangible, vast, and unrelenting. Aria raised her hand. Through the link she had forged with the fleet, the ships responded instantly, moving in perfect formation around the Vigil. The fleet hummed with energy, weapons flashing as if the heartbeat of humanity itself powered them. Mara's voice came over the comm. "All units ready, Captain. Awaiting orders." The first strike came without warning. A shadow streaked through the fleet, faster than any human eye could track, striking with a force that twisted the space around it. Ships shuddered, alarms screamed, and hundreds of crewmen and women clung to consoles as energy arcs tore through their hulls. Rin shouted, "Shields holding, but not for long!" Aria's mind raced. The architect's strike wasn't just physical, it was mental. Waves of pressure, intent, and memory assaulted her and every connected human. They tried to rewrite thought, to erase fear, to force obedience. "Focus on your names," she shouted over the chaos. "Remember who you are." The fleet responded. Lights blazed along hulls, energy beams firing into the approaching shadows. The architects faltered as the human will struck back, the pulse of life and memory forming a countercurrent to their silent command. Ships that had been asleep now fired with precision, striking invisible weak points, tearing through reality itself. Inside the Vigil, the bridge shook. Panels flickered. The blue-white script under Aria's skin burned hotter, threading into Mara and Rin, and reaching outward into the fleet like a conductor directing an orchestra. "Push them back," Aria said. "Let them see what we've become." The architect's ships twisted, trying to fold space and time against the fleet, but humans had returned not as pawns, but as masters of memory and will. They anticipated moves before they happened, anticipating every attack, countering with strikes that bent the void itself. From the center of the dead star, the core pulsed. Aria extended her consciousness toward it. The energy there surged outward, linking the reborn humans to every ship, every awakened colony, every person stolen and returned. The architect's assault faltered against this new reality. They realized too late that humanity had remembered itself in a way that could not be undone. Mara shouted, "Incoming pods! They're rised, they're joining the fight." Pods that had slept for centuries opened above enemy ships. Humans emerged in suits that shimmered with energy, drawn from the core. Weapons that had never been used, minds sharpened by isolation and survival. They struck with precision, tearing apart ships that had seemed invincible moments before. The architect's formation began to break. Rin shouted from the console, pointing to a massive shadow that blinked in and out of visibility. "Captain! That's their command vessel! Take it down and we can end this." Aria focused all her will. Through the link she held with the fleet, she directed a coordinated strike. Hundreds of ships aligned their beams on the command vessel. Mara amplified the signal through her device. Energy from the dead star's core pulsed outward in a wave, bending the command vessel's hull, unraveling it from the inside. The architect's ship flickered, twisted, and then collapsed into itself like a dying star. The remaining fleet recoiled in disarray. The void around the dead star seemed to breathe. Silence fell. The Vigil drifted among the victorious fleet. Outside, the ships of humanity gleamed, their hulls glowing with the energy of memory restored. Mara let out a long breath. "We did it. They're gone." Aria did not move immediately. Her mind reached out, sensing the remnants of the architects scattered in the void. Some fled, some were destroyed, but all had been repelled. The human fleet had endured, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. They had remembered themselves, and in that act they had become unstoppable. Rin walked to her side. "Captain, we're safe. For now," Aria nodded slowly, eyes on the stars. "Not just safe. We're reborn. Every human who was stolen, every colony erased, every secret hidden, they're back. Humanity is whole again. And this time, we will never forget." The fleet responded to her silent command, forming a protective sphere around the dead star and the reborn colonies. Ships carrying humans poured into orbit, guiding their people safely to the planets, while the central core stabilized, a beacon of energy, memory, and life. Mara touched Aria's arm. "What now?" she asked quietly. Aria looked outward. Countless worlds waited, millions of humans awakening to the light of suns they had never known. "Now," she said, "we rebuild. We explore. We protect what was once stolen. Humanity will never be erased again." The dead star pulsed softly. A heartbeat returned, a reminder of everything that had been lost and found. Outside, the reborn fleet moved as one, a wave of light and life sweeping across the nebula. Ships descended on distant planets, activating long-dormant colonies. Humanity's secret core, the heart of every erased world, beat once more. In the quiet after the storm, the Starbound Vigil hovered among the fleet. The crew gathered on the bridge, exhausted but alive, faces lit by the glow of 1,000,000 stars. They had faced erasure, betrayal, and the Architect's wrath, and they had survived. Aria finally let herself breathe. "We are humanity," she said softly, almost to herself. "Not erased, not forgotten. Never again." Outside, the reborn humans on the planets lifted their eyes to the stars. A new era had begun. The architects were gone. The erased were returned, and the universe would remember humanity, not as shadows of the past, but as masters of their destiny. The final reckoning was over. Humanity had fought, endured, and awakened. They were erased no more.